Welcome to Film Phreeks. This is Justin Llewellyn.
And Eddie Williams.
And tonight we're going to be doing another audio review of a film that I honestly wasn't really looking forward to that much, but I went into it with an open mind. And we're going to be talking about 47 Meters Down, Uncaged, which is a sequel to 2017's 47 Meters Down. And this movie is directed by the same director, Johannes Roberts, and stars a couple of interesting casting choices. You got Sylvester Stallone's daughter, and also Jamie Foxx's daughter, and you also got John Corbett and Nia Long and all them. And in this story, we deal with a group of teenage girls who go scuba diving, and it takes place in Mexico. And,
yeah, it's in Mexico,
and they end up pretty much it's in the mine. They end up going to this cave that's in the Mayan city underground and underwater.
Yeah, it was like some ancient Mayan city that that went underwater like thousands of years ago due to rising sea levels.
Yeah,
so and they end up discovering this little mine, and nosy teenagers, as always, they get into a dilemma where they're pretty much stuck under this maze, and they got to find a way out by getting getting stalked by sharks.
Yeah, and here's a little backstory. Now, this film is the sequel to 2017's 47 Meters Down.
Sequel by title. Technically, it is not it's basically its own movie. We're at this point now where we're starting to see a lot of films do these something presents. We saw it with National Lampoon's, American Pie, many others, and apparently 47 Meters is doing it.
Yeah, and it's the equivalent of direct-to-video sequels, which are basically standalone sequels that only share the title. But this was actually released theatrical, so this is one of those rare occasions. But anyway, the first 47 Meters Down, I'll admit, I was not a fucking fan of. I remember going into that film with kind of open-minded, and I was so distraught with that movie to the point that not only was I so bored with that movie, but also the ending really killed it for me.
Yeah, he didn't like it as much. He hated it more than I did. I will say I agree with him in the fucking ending. The ending was just god awful. Like, what the fuck, really? Like, that really dropped down 1,000 notches, and it was kind of pretty much a pacey, boring story overall because they're stuck in a cage. Now there were some aspects I did kind of like, where it was intense, where it's like, the whole running out of time thing and looking up, you can't get above. That was kind of pretty much the best part of it. And like you said, the cast really wasn't all that great with that one. So I was kind of worried going into this film because I felt like the way that they did the marketing of the trailer, it feels like these films, while getting theatrical release, they do feel kind of at the same time like something straight out video.
Yeah, and and also keep in mind, I enjoy seeing a lot of shark movies that we've been seeing the last few years. But what also I mean, in the last few years, we've had some really great ones, like The Shallows, and even The Meg had some entertaining. So there's things that I knew from the get-go that they were limited on as far as the PG-13 rating and all that. So from the trailers, I really wasn't really buying into it because I didn't like the first one. But ironically, much to my surprise, I gotta admit that I actually like this better than the first movie, and that's saying
while it is to me, I felt like it was a big step up from the first movie. I do find the movie okay. And we'll get into our pros and cons, but it was at least somewhat decent.
Yeah, I consider it pretty much like if like the kind of like the Purge movies. I did not like the first one, but I like the second one. So it's kind of like one of those where the sequel actually does more with its concept better than the first movie does. And that's when we get into my pros here. And to get my pros out of the way, I will say that compared to the first movie with Mandy Moore and the other girl, these leads in this movie I thought it was more likable, and they had a more, their performances I thought were a lot more on point, and they actually, I found them more tolerable.
Yeah,
And they
they're
actually,
more tolerable. It's not like you're looking for Oscar outstanding performance, but I like that they upped it with more people because I felt like that's for the body count. There's more to do, and I found the girls to be like not as annoying.
yeah,
So
and
they were decent. They were pretty
yeah,
decent. And another pro I like to say is um this one actually had some fucking pretty cinematography in the theaters.
oh
The
yeah,
ocean and the
definitely,
little ass thing. Yeah, the ocean being underwater, it looked fucking like beautiful. They did a really good with the setting in this one. And I also, speaking of setting, another pro. I love the whole like where this is more out of the cage and them exploring like these mines, these little maze underwater was pretty
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I the same here. Like, and that's the irony because the first film I didn't really care. I couldn't really get into the cinematography the way it was filmed and everything because it looked too off filter over it. And with this one, I actually got more into the actual setting because it was a lot more clear. Well, it wasn't clear cut, but it was a lot more on level of what the actual underwater ocean resembles for me. And I love the whole Mayan, like you were saying, the whole Mayan underground mines and stuff, and or caves and stuff. And I liked when they go into like these old ancient like ruins and all that. And in a way, it kind of
Yeah,
reminds
which
it
it
gave me
goes
more
to
of a
my other pro.
claustrophobic feel.
Yeah, I love the claustrophobic feel, but in a way, it kind of like where they're going through all the maze. It gives them a sense of. It made me a sense of more like on edge, like it was more tense because you're in these mines. You don't know a way out. You don't know if there is a way out, and their only way out gets stuck and gets ends up collapsing, and there's like no way they can get fucking air
Yeah. And what I
anywhere
also appreciated was
except
the
for
film
a
kind
few
of gave.
little spots. But uh, I also kind of liked with those girls and stuff, and like the whole mines and stuff. Kind of gives you an underwater version of the Descent.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of. And I'm not trying to compare because that's a way different movie altogether. But I will say that on that level, it gave me that whole survivor claustrophobic feel with them having to survive from different, certain elements. In this instance, it's
And
sharks.
probably one, yeah, the sharks. And probably one of my favorite things about this movie was a lot of people, and there's a huge talk about this. And I liked where they were going. Well, we'll get to the con part in a second, but for the majority of the film, they keep this movie kind of settled with as far as sharks go. And there's a shark that he's kind of the reminiscent of the shape.
Yeah, it looked just like Michael Myers' version of shark, and I love the fact
Yeah,
that the
and there's
shark.
a lot of talk, and I like that approach they did, where it's just that one shark, and he's just. I like the way that they didn't just randomly do typical shark shit, where like sharks are coming down and jump, which some are jump scares, but I liked how he's just in the background, just slowly, slowly, not trying to eat them right away, just fucking, just terrifying them. It's actually done pretty well.
I did too. I thought that was very intenseful, and I also got to give it credit. It
Yeah.
kind of was reminiscent of it was like a cross between the Shape from Halloween and also a little bit of the Alien from Alien in some scenes, like the way he kind of sneaks up on people and stuff, and the way he's kind of just like looking around and shit. I love those kind of moments where he's like, he's coming, but you only get like glimpses of him. And I also got to appreciate the fact that the movie it puts you in the right realm of these type of when it actually gets away with showing certain like gruesome parts. They actually
Blood.
do show a little bit of blood, and I actually was kind of glad to see that.
Yeah, like you get a glimpse of like a torn off head. You see this one guy just getting just mauled the fucking shreds, and the water's turning murky and bloody. Um, and there was actually a pretty cool scene where they're pretty much you think that, oh god, they find a little spot they can see land, but it's so out of reach. It's almost like it's teasing you. And
Yeah,
then that's where, like couple like this is like the other part where like maybe more of the Michael Myers type sharks there ends up being more than one, because I was always wondering why he just kept popping up like the Shape. I'm like, man, they're really going supernatural with this. Come to find there's a couple of them, and uh
yeah.
Boy, did they fucking tear some ass.
Yeah, and what I kind of like the fact that throughout about two quarters, 2/3 of the film is kind of like a slasher movie level of
Yeah,
story.
it's slasher or shark slasher film, which hell, I mean, with the shark genre coming out, so many movies, it needed something fresh. It really
Yeah,
did. Because I'm just about done with shark movies because it just feels like they're overly doing them. So it was kind of nice to see a little bit different take. But yeah,
but that's but other
pretty
than that,
much my pros. But here's where we get our cons.
yeah,
And this movie had a lot going for it for the first half. Uh, and where the problem really lies is the third act, the last about 15, 20 minutes of the film.
yeah,
Now, I don't know if this film is meant to be realistic or not. I, to me, want to see it be more realism because it's scary that you would be in that predicament, and it's realistic you can be in that predicament. There, it starts kind of going out way out there, and a lot of the parts, for example, the current thing, that would have fucking killed them.
yeah, and also there's actually convenient when it gets to its third act. That's when I started calling bullshit on a lot of the scenarios that the characters
Like
get
that
themselves
girl, like
in.
sucked down the current thing, a little hole like a whirlpool. Like she would have drowned, especially when they're running out of fucking air. It's just
Yeah,
like, oh my god, this is fucking too predictable. Like, oh, that's another con. This is where it gets real fucking predictable. It like, while I did enjoy the movie, you do know who ends up winning and who ends up surviving.
yeah, and what also I found really what I don't like about that is the fact that it starts to become so conveniently in such in a that things get solved in such a easy way that it
Yeah.
loses its momentum that it had built up earlier with of them
Yeah,
actually
like they were
survive.
building this movie up, and by three quarters in the film, they were doing, not the best, but it was doable. I was liking what I was seeing, and then like the whole whirlpool where the girl should have died, and then they go through that whirlpool thing to try to find a hole out into the ocean, and this is what probably one of my biggest gripes is they abandon those Michael Myers type sharks and they go for a fucking standard shark movie where it's just
Yeah.
these regular sharks that are getting fed by this aquarium thing that's on a boat for people who can go down and watch sharks as they feed them. And it's just regular great whites. It's like, okay, this is like two different fucking movies now.
Yeah, it seemed to me
Suddenly
that
becomes a
the
different movie.
filmmakers, it seemed to me like the director was, he was a fan of the some of the sequels to Jaws and probably Jaws 2 maybe, and they were going for that typical climax that they wanted to build up, which we won't spoil, but let's just say that it is so blatantly so convenient and it's just like, okay, that's
These,
you
for
couldn't survive
what
that.
Yeah, you couldn't survive that because there's a lot of parts where pretty much I'm not gonna say who, but sharks get a hold of them, and sharks of that magnitude with the fucking radius bite and the amount of force they could put pressure on, they would have chomped that girl in half by fucking one bite.
Yeah.
And the fact that their injuries, while it looks kind of bloody and gruesome, didn't match the bite marks on how big these fucking regular great whites were. And then they start going this really fucking action packed trying to be like this badass where they turn that one main girl who's kind of pretty much picked on and is considered kind of a dork most of the movie into some fucking badass superhero poking eyeballs out, and it goes off the fucking walls at the end.
Yeah, I found that
It
the
just feels
ending,
like
it
a
was,
totally different fucking movie
yeah,
than what I saw the first three quarters of.
yeah, and and that was my biggest problem the most. Now, unlike the first film, which pissed me off with its fucking ending, that was such a big fuck you to the rest of it. This one, it didn't piss me off as much as the first movie did, but it still made me feel a bit, kind of like let down as far as when they built to their climax. Because I'm like, you had something going for it, but you lost your momentum when you get to your third act.
Yeah, I guess they decided to go ahead and play it safe And let's just say that if you haven't seen the movie, we're not going to spoil it, but for you that have seen it, I guess that pretty much I could take a wild guess, and I was actually I predicted it right. You can call who the survivors are going to be.
Yeah, and
It is
it's
that fucking easy. It is
yeah,
the most easiest pick.
yeah, and the other thing
And like
too is
another con I had, like where you like, it's kind of hard not to talk about it because it's spoiler territory, but it does like have this part where like you think it's gonna abruptly end like out of nowhere, and then something else happens, and then you think, okay, now it's over, and then something happens again. Okay, now it's over. Then something happens again. It's just
it's like
like it's like, okay, what's the fucking ending here? And
yeah,
then
it's
I was like, that's the ending?
yeah, it was kind of like they were doing a return Lord of the Rings Return of the King on us. I'm like, you have so many endings you could end right here, but no, you keep going on and on. I'm like, oh
No, just
man,
think it's a typical Survivor movie where the ending has two people hugging each other. I'm like, oh my God. This, that's where the movie dropped for me.
yeah, and
Wow, it was had going for it, but
yeah. But other than that, though, I will say that overall, this was a step up from the last movie. But even
yeah,
still, it still had a lot of. It's mainly the first two-thirds of the film that I really enjoy the most. And so with that,
yeah.
I'm going to give the movie probably just mm, I'm going to say maybe because I didn't like the first movie a lot at all. I'm going to say this one's more of a kind of a to balance out kind of a low average Joe on the Film Freaks meter.
That's what I was going for, was a pretty low average Joe on the Film Freaks meter, because while I, like I said earlier, I enjoyed the movie, 2/3 of it. I felt like the ending and getting rid of the Michael Myers type albino ones, like the Descent type sharks, and then it becomes just a out of nowhere a different typical fucking shark movie with new sharks. It was
Mm-hmm.
just I felt like it just, like you take a bag of fucking groceries, it rips and it just falls on the floor. That's what it felt like it did to me towards the end.
Yeah,
So, but yeah,
but fair enough. For those of you who have also seen 47 meters down, Uncaged, and also the first 47 meters down, let us know in the comments below of what you thought about it. And if you like what you see here, you can feel free to like and subscribe to our channel and check out some other reviews here and our website at filmfreaks.com. And we'll be seeing you in our next review. We'll see you later.
later.